Yo, YouTube, we back in this bitch. United Kingdom, what the fuck is up? Brexit, huh? How's that Brexit working out for you? I keep asking this, but is there a single financial like member of the oligarchy that's actually making money? Oi, bruv, how's the Brexit? No, I'm not going to embarrass myself, but no. But I mean, honestly, is anyone making any money off this? You know what I mean? Like the corporate right-wing Tory government is like, you know, triple down and quadrupling down, and it's like, are tax cuts like literally the only thing that is like the only benefit that anyone's receiving out of this? It doesn't seem like it's a good idea. I thought corrupt corporatist right-wingers want to see business unhindered. And they put a big old motherfucking, like, you know, chain, you know, big old thick chain around their entire economic situation. And they're like, this is the greatest idea ever, as they're losing money. I mean, hand over fist. There's no way these rich Tories are making a shitload of money off Brexit. Anyway, the theme can't even import a ba'o-wa'o. Can't even get a ba'o-wa'o around here. Good old ba'o-wa'o. But no, the theme of today's UK coverage is parallels. Like I said earlier, the MAGA-style fascism, just like all styles of fascism, is an aesthetic. And we're seeing it being applied as a template in the UK, in Canada, in France, in any Western modern democracy. We are seeing the limits being tested. Basically, they're like, well, what would actually happen if we were totally shameless and we didn't go after our own party for any of its crimes, and we just gaslit our way to the top? Would that work? Has anyone actually tried that? To be beyond shameless, right? To just laugh in the face of reality, right? Knowing that you have several million people that will likely back you up, right? And as we saw in the UK, everyone was predicting the Tories were going to lose everything. They lost big time, but they didn't lose everything. There were still millions of people that lined up. And there's still millions of people that are like, I love Boris Johnson. We should bring back Boris. There are way too many parallels to what's happening in the United States beyond Boris Johnson looking like a bloated, you know, a bangers and mash version of fucking Donald Trump, right? Beyond the aesthetics, right? There are some very clear examples here, and I wanted to show them. So what do we have here? Just like what we see in the United States, we see the right-wing Tory party disregard the rules of the body that they're sitting in, right? Deep state, fake news, we don't have to do it. We're above the law. We don't respect you. And this isn't me shouting like, oh, decorum, 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 right? But no, this is a flagrant disregard for the rule of law. This is a flagrant disregard for the mechanisms of democracy. And we're seeing this with the right-wing parties across the board all over the world. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. Someone get me a ba'o-wa'o.
We are elected to hear it first, not to read it in the Telegraph, and certainly not a WMS is satisfactory on such an important matter.
I'm very sorry that the sequencing that we chose was not to your satisfaction.
That is totally not acceptable. Who do you think you're speaking to, Secretary of State? I am the defender of this House and these benches on both sides. I am not going to be spoken to by a Secretary of State who is absolutely not accepting my ruling. Before we begin the urgent question, I know that it is highly regrettable that the government decided not to offer an oral statement on this matter yesterday. Given the importance of this announcement, on such matters, full engagement with Parliament and its committees is essential. Before I call the Chair, I will remind the government we are elected to hear it first, not to read it in the Telegraph, and certainly not a WMS is satisfactory on such an important matter. Hence, that I would always say, I'm now going to call the chair of the European Scrutiny Committee to ask the urgent question. Sir William Cash.
Mr. Speaker, will the Secretary of State make a statement regarding the question of her failure to come to the House before she made the written ministerial statement and the press article today in the Daily Telegraph?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Look, if you're unsure what the hell, what's the problem here? Whoop-de-doo, she forgot to do something, or whatever. It's a paperwork thing, right? No. The reason why you would do this is so that you can say something ridiculous or untrue, and your opponent will be blindsided by that, won't have any, won't have the ability to have a rebuttal ready, won't be able to fact check what your statement is or any of that. And basically, it's a way to steamroll the opposition, in a way to kind of take hostage the narrative, and to push. Well, this is the reality, right? You didn't question me. Kind of like that argumentative tactic of Gish galloping, right? Where it's like you just say a bunch of bullshit, and if I don't refute every single one of those points that you made, the bullshit points that you make, then I must agree with them, I must acquiesce to them. That's kind of what we see here. And they have this parliamentary procedure in place so that they can attempt to have an honest debate, right? So this is an attempt to subvert the ability to have an honest debate. And it's also, delegitimizing what they're doing there, right? It's like if you can just skirt around, transparency or any kind of pushback, for the madness that you're trying to employ, then what's the point of this body, right? So it's an insult to the people that are running, especially the head motherfucker that speaks up, right? It's a total insult to him. I can't remember the name of his position, whatever the fuck. How come he doesn't have the powdered wig on, man? It's hard to tell.
I'm very sorry that the sequencing that we chose was not to your satisfaction. I was...
Order. That is totally not acceptable. No. Who do you think you're speaking to, Secretary of State? I think we need to understand each other.
Thank you.
I am the defender of this House and these benches on both sides. I am not going to be spoken to by a Secretary of State who is absolutely not accepting my ruling. Take it with good grace and accept it. That members should hear it first, not a WMS or what you decide. These members have been elected by their constituents and they have the right to hear it first. And it is time this government recognised we're all elected, we're all members of Parliament, and use the correct manners. Secretary of State.
Mr. Speaker, I apologise. What I was trying to say was that I'm very sorry that I did not meet the standards which you expect of Secretaries of State.
Oh, okay. Maybe she's also sorry as well. I mean, she's sorry that you're offended, but she's also really... She can't sleep at night.
My language. But what I have been trying to do is make sure that I provide as much clarity as possible. So I am actually very pleased to be coming to the House to speak. I'm very pleased to be coming to the House to speak on this issue. I have written ministerial statement.
Those boos were me. Sorry. Okay. Blah 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 blah. Gaslight. Gish gallop. Gaslight. Walk around the fact that you don't offer anything. Blah, blah, blah. You want to? I put the link in the chat if you want to see the rest of this person's statement. Hit him with the Apple Genius apology. Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry. Are you having a bad day? Anyway, so that's one example of what I'm talking about. This right wing, right, flouting. Just like unless it's a written rule, right? Unless it's but all these like traditional rules like that it didn't need to be written down. Because there was a certain amount of respect that both sides held for each other. So it didn't need to be, right? So the right wing are taking advantage of if it's not specifically written down, like that's what they wanted to do with Pence, right? During the certification of Joe Biden's election. Well, technically, that's their version of a Republican Tories. Yeah, there's also UKIP as well, which is kind of an extremer version, kind of like a Tea Party of in the UK. So here's the other example. Now, if you don't know who Nick Ferrari is, he is a conservative journalist for LBC. LBC is not Snoop Dogg's neighborhood. It actually stands for Leading Britain's Conversation. And you can think of it like a BBC, in the UK, except it's not BBC. It's separate. And they actually do much better journalism a lot of the time than the BBC does. But what I'm trying to show here is that the conservative mentality is really like it's the same everywhere. It doesn't matter unless it happens to me. If it happens to me, then it's a really important issue. If it's not happening to me or my family, I don't know, suffer and die. Here's some bootstraps. That mentality is alive and well in the UK. And what I'm trying to say is that it's the conservative mentality, right? That we have to fight. It's conservatism, right? And it's a global fight. It's not just the US. It's not isolated to any one location. It's like we need some solidarity with lefties across the world against this fight, because it's really not that different. But anyway, you see what he says. You'll see what he says here. By the way, this is also a great content creator. You need to check him out, Maximilian Robespierre. Check him out if you want UK content that is not corporate media. It's not Sky News. It's not BBC. It's someone breaking it down, separated from those. Definitely heavily recommend you like and subscribe to Maximilian Robespierre. So let's go ahead and check out this coverage.
Hi guys, times are strange when I'm forced to agree with Nick Ferrari. So on Question Time on Thursday night, the radio host delivered an almost perfect solution to the problem of raw sewage in English waterways. For people who don't know, English water was privatised many years ago, and while the companies running the system have been making millions in profit and handing it over to their shareholders, the infrastructure is collapsing due to a lack of real investment. The Tory solution is to give the private companies more taxpayer money. Nick Ferrari instead has a different solution.
I can solve this at a stroke, and let me tell you how we do it. The water company bosses are paid an average of around £1 million a year. Between the 22 or 23 of them, they bank £25 million. The profits that they make are eye-watering. The fines that are levied by the government are almost built into the business model. They don't actually care because they're making so much money. Meanwhile, people in Bexhill and Eastbourne are out there swimming in a word I won't even use, and you can't water your hydrangeas.
Okay, wow, this guy sounds like a lefty. What are you talking about, abandoned nihilism? Yeah, I thought you said this guy's a conservative. I don't quite understand. I'll explain. Let him finish his statement and I'll explain.
This is the way we solve it, and it's very simple. When the government wants to, they can bring in a law overnight, like the Public Order Act, which saw 6 people with a load of banners and some rubber bands arrested and thrown in jail. This is the law that needs to come in. Any chief executive who continually allows his or her company to put raw sewage into the water, let's get this law enacted straight away, will go to jail for 5 years for corporate...
Wow, okay, Che Guevara. Wow, corporate accountability. Now, why would this Brexit-supporting, corporate-friendly right-winger who thinks Rishi Sunak's doing a great job and it's the Ramoners that just aren't giving Brexit a chance that's causing these issues, and I don't know about that Keir Starmer, which is fair, but what would make this guy who's definitely right-leaning and will definitely be voting for a Tory party, even after all the failures of Brexit, will definitely be bellying up to that Tory bar once again. Why would this guy all of a sudden give a shit about companies dumping sewage into the waterways? I mean, come on, we got a little profit to make. You're not going to let regulation get in the way of a little profit. Well, normally we he would agree with that. Normally he would agree that we can't let profit, that we we have to consider the profit motive, before we consider anything else. Normally that would be a pretty salient argument to Nick Ferrari. That's his real last name. But let's see why. Why all of a sudden does he give a shit about sewage water in clean water? I mean, that's a classic Republican I don't give a shit, right? Yeah, poison the water. Who fucking cares, man? I just drink a bottle, right? Right? Who fucking cares, man? That's a classic. I mean, that's like half the episodes of Captain Planet were about characters like Nick Ferrari dumping sewage into the waterways, right? It's a classic right-wing thing that they like to do, right? So why would he give a shit?
Because, and one of my sons suffered from this. You can get Weil's disease. Fortunately, he lived, which is a killer, and they are playing with people's lives by putting...
Oh, his son was poisoned and given some kind of disease, because of the rampant corruption, putting, disgusting sewage into drinking water, and his son maybe bathed in it, maybe drank it, and he almost died. Gee whiz. Boy, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? That sounds real familiar, right? Like John McCain standing up against torture, right? One of the biggest warmongers in the world, but I don't know about that torture stuff. Why is that, John? Right? Or all these like right-wing women, politicians, like sheepishly standing up for Roe v. Wade because either they or their daughter, right, or their mother or someone in their family had to get an abortion, right, after they were raped or something. It's like, oh, well, I don't know about this no exception stuff. 6 weeks is not enough to know. I don't know. Sheepishly, oh. Well, because it affects them. It happens to them. Same mentality, same kind of people, selfish, narcissists who arrogantly tell you, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what people want. And they have no empathy. They have no empathy. When they say you don't know what you're talking about and you don't know what people want, they're saying, I don't know what people want and I don't care. I know what I want. And I'm going to pretend that, because that's what I want. Well, that's what everyone else wants. What's good for me is good for everyone else. Same fucking mentalities. It's like we're fighting the same people. It really is. Like coming from the United States, now living in Canada, it feels like the fight followed me. I'm up against the PPC now, right? Same shit though. Same QAnon, MAGA style fascism. Oh yeah, we should destroy our system of government and replace it with this weird authoritarianism that makes me feel good inside. Until it doesn't. Until the authoritarianism steps over them, and they're like, oh, this is against my rights. This is against my liberties. I didn't vote for this. Yeah, you fucking did, you moron. That's exactly what you voted for. And now you're getting put in chains. Why? Because you have a gay brother or what? Because you didn't read a book right or who knows? Who knows? Who knows what shape this pseudo-theocratic authoritarianism will take? Who knows? All right. Last little bit here. This is important. This is important, I want to play this for you because I think it's very, very important to understand why people sometimes don't stand up for themselves. And I need you to understand that this is intentional. This is a very intentional cycle that you are put in by your leaders. They understand that you're in this rock and a hard place when it comes to standing up for yourself and changing politics. And they use that against you. They know the police that show up to the protests are being too heavy-handed. They want you to be intimidated. They don't want you coming back to the protest. They want you to be scared. They want you to think that you're going to get fired, that you're going to get fingered as a terrorist, and that you're going to lose your job and lose your livelihood if you stand up for yourself. They want that dynamic. Then they shouldn't be in a democracy. They don't fucking care about democracy. They don't care that that's a blatant disregard for democratic principles. They care about their power and their wealth and their status. Same as it ever was. Same as it ever was. Same as it ever was. Identifying it and fighting it is the only thing that will change it. Acquiescing and hand waving, oh, that's just the way the world works. Well, guess what? Guess what isn't going to get any better with that kind of fucking pissy attitude? Oh, it's hard. I don't know, man. We got to change people's minds. Oh no. You're not going to change the world, but you can be part of the momentum that does change the world. Every person counts. Everyone pushing in the same direction matters. So here's what I'm talking about. You'll see what I'm saying.
Yeah. And the irony of this, so people are being silent.
Oh, this
James.
is huge. Fiona, why do you think, because you are cross enough, we have spoken before, you do feel the white heat of outrage. Why do you think other people fail to feel similarly about the assault on protest?
Well, I think there's a number of things going on, and I think you've just hit on one of them, and that is the very conscious...
Talking about the coronation protests that were heavily clamped down on. You know, couldn't have King George be all insulted.
Othering of groups like Just Stop Oil and Extinction Rebellion and making them out to be are we crusties or are we young people who have been
trust funds,
manipulated?
Trustafarians, crusties. I mean, and that was perhaps there was an element of truth in that when Swampy was strutting his stuff. But you've got Vickers, you've got people like you've got. I mean, the Extinction Rebellion and the Just Stop Oil activists are a million miles away from the lazy tabloid stereotype.
Completely. And right now I've got a friend who's a paramedic, and he's trying to talk to the hospital authorities where he works so that he can continue with his protesting. My partner has talked to the head teacher of his school to ask if he can, what would happen to him if he got arrested.
That's interesting.
And he was told that if he got linked to the school and therefore brought the school into disrepute, that would be a disciplinary offence.
Oh, this is huge.
Yeah. And the irony of this, so people are being silent.
Oh, this is huge. So you've got a peaceful protest. Suddenly the police have got the rights to lock you up, to arrest you for making a peaceful protest. The arrest, this is the point Betty and Pickering was making. The fear of getting a record then means you're not. So you've got a teacher, an upstanding member of society who cares passionately about the environment and the future of the planet, goes on a peaceful protest, gets his collar felt by, let's say, an institutionally corrupt police force in the case of the Met, and then his own job is in jeopardy because he's brought his employer into, quotes, disrepute, end quote.
Yes.
They know it. They know that this is the system that they built, and they love it.
And multiply that right across the country for people who are working for the national health and in education. Yeah. And these are the people who know the impact of, go back to the climate crisis. God. So they are passionately concerned for future generations. And they can't take the action they want to take to support those children. I've worked with children and young people all my life, and my heart is breaking for their future. And if I was teaching right now, because people have said to me, you're lucky you've retired, you haven't got that choice, Fiona. Yeah. But if I was teaching, how would I go to parents' evenings, James, and talk to parents about their kids' future when I know that loads of university students who are giving up their degrees because they know they haven't got one unless we stop all new oil and gas.
That's being pretty hyperbolic, but she's bringing up a point where it's like, how do I combat the hopelessness, right? When young people see protest movements crack down like this, when they see Brexit happen, when they see neoliberals failing to provide any kind of left alternative, how do I give them hope? That's kind of what we do here, right, at the News Underground. That's why I'm abandoned nihilism, because hope is kind of essential. If we don't have hope, we're hopeless. And what does that mean for humanity, right? We can't allow ourselves to fall into this nihilistic trap.
I mean, you wouldn't get into trouble for doing that.
But I would. That's all I would want to talk.
No, I know it is.
About.
But
it
you
would break my heart.
And then you wouldn't even be able to carry on teaching if you'd been arrested at a protest.
Teaching, and we have teachers and we have students all giving up their jobs and their future plans because they know there isn't a future, and yet they are being silenced. Can I tell you the other thing as well?
Of course.
People are being arrested and released under investigation, RUI. And some of the media are saying we can't talk to you if we're released on RUI.
That is no. And of course, what happens then?
True.
What happens then is you revert to the stereotype. So the only people who will be able to protest are people who have opted out of society a bit. And my lazy stereotype about Swampy comes back into play, doesn't it?
Yeah. No, it basically means like, only the people unemployed and, people that are like losers and stuff will have the ability and time to actually participate in political activism. They know what they're doing.
So in fact, what has motivated this legislation is the fact that the stereotypes have been completely exploded by reality. We see people like you, people like your partner, the retired accountants on top of trains, the vicars chaining themselves, and they can't cope with that because they look like Daily Mail readers and they're protesting against. So what the hell are we going to do? Criminalise them, and then they'll be too frightened to do it, or enough of them will be too frightened to do it.
Yeah, and we knew this was coming. I mean, you did a program. Well, I don't know, James. Don't do yourself down. You did
I'm a Catholic.
a program
Goes
on
with the territory.
you did the program on are we getting to a fashion? You have those definitions
I have
that
used
going
the
on,
F word. You're right.
and we hit every one of them, and we're right in the thick of it now. People too frightened and too poor and too worried about their rent, their mortgage, their food to protest.
And we're back to George's line this morning in The Guardian. The more unequal a society becomes, the more oppressive its laws must be.
Exactly.
Must is the key word.
Exactly.
Must be.
Absolutely. And the other thing is when people are frightened like they are now, they're frightened. They don't want to believe this.
No.
I'm hesitating for a word. This rubbish is happening to them. They
it's
want
not in
to
this
believe.
country, not here.
Yeah, exactly.
Denial.
So we've all been gaslit into thinking our police are great. And some of them are. Good God, I know some of them and they're brilliant. But they're struggling with this bill because it doesn't give them the definition. They're having to make things up on the spot.
And they're arresting journalists like Charlotte Lynch. They're also struggling with the calibre of new recruits, which I was reading about this morning. Some people with really dodgy records, right up to and including criminals, still getting through the police recruitment process. I presume because Suella Braverman is desperate to make announcements about how many new police they've managed to recruit. And so that bar gets ever lowered, even in the context of all the catastrophic stories and disgusting revelations that have come out involving police services in recent months. Thank you, Fiona. I always enjoy your calls, but that one will stay with me even more than usual, because that is, of course, that's what they've done. I hadn't even thought of that.
Pretty amazing stuff, right? Pretty amazing stuff. Like I said before, I won't dwell on it, but MAGA-style right-wing fascism has, like all fascism, become an aesthetic, become a template, and it is being applied in every Western democracy across the world. Absolutely. It's a threat. It's a threat to civilized humanity. It is a threat. All right, but there you go. That's my UK update. Up next, Ukraine. A lot of good news, baby. A lot of good news out of Ukraine. You love to see it. All right, so I'll see you on the other side. Thank you so much, YouTube.